GPT 5.6 just dropped, and I think a lot of people are about to make the same mistake. They're going to look at a launch chart, watch a few viral screenshots, ask one clever prompt, and then decide whether this is the new best model. I don't think that's how builders should test it. I'm Jacob from Jacob Labs, and I'm looking at this from a builder's perspective, not as a hype reaction. I also want to be clear up front. I have not run my own GPT 5.6 test yet, so this is not a fake hands-on review. What I want to do in this video is walk through what OpenAI actually released, what early reactions are saying, where the caution flags are, and the 7 tests I would run before switching a real workflow over to GPT 5.6. Because the real question is not, is GPT impressive? Because obviously it is. The better question is, would I actually trust this with my work? So the idea for this video is simple. Don't switch first, test first, not with riddles, poems, or one-off vibe checks. Test it against the kind of work you actually do. OpenAI announced GPT 5.6 as a new model family. The headline is that this is not just one model. This includes Sol, Terra, and Luna. OpenAI is positioning this around stronger intelligence, better performance per dollar, and more capability on demand for harder work. That sounds exciting, but as builders, we need to turn that into practical questions. Which part of this actually helps my workflow? The basic lineup is this. Sol is the flagship model, Terra is the middle option, balancing intelligence and cost, Luna is the faster, cheaper option for higher volume of work. That's important because this is not really a one model decision, it's a routing decision. You do not automatically use the strongest model for everything. You ask, what's the task? How much reasoning does it need? How expensive is failure? How often am I going to run it? And how much human review does it need? That's the builder mindset. The API pages show different model IDs for Sol, Terra, and Luna. They also list a very large context window of up to 1,050,000 tokens and up to 128,000 output tokens. The pages show text and image input and text output. They also support things builders care about like function calling and structured outputs. That gives GPT 5.6 a lot of useful surface area, but we should be careful. A big spec sheet does not automatically mean your workflow gets better. This is one of the biggest traps. Big context does not automatically mean better workflow. A giant context window means that the model can accept more input. It doesn't prove it will retrieve the right detail. It doesn't prove it will prioritize the latest instruction. It doesn't prove it'll catch contradictions, and it definitely doesn't prove that the result is worth the cost. So I would treat context as capacity and not quality. The real test is attention. Can it find the right information? Can it use that information later? Can it cite where it found it? And can it ignore stale or conflicting instructions? That's what matters. Pricing matters too. Sol, Terra, and Luna all have different costs. And once you start using huge inputs, the cost can change quickly. So the thing I would measure is not just price per token. I would measure cost per accepted result. That means how many attempts did it actually take? How many edits did it need to make? How much human supervision was required? And did it actually produce something that I could use? A model can look cheap per token and still be expensive if it fails a lot, and a model can look expensive per token but be worth it because it solves the hard job in fewer attempts. The next thing I would separate is verified facts from reaction. Launch day always creates 3 different kinds of information. Official facts, community reactions, and independent caveats. Those are not the same thing. An official OpenAI page tells you what was released, an ex post tells you what one person experienced, an independent evaluation tells you something about one testing setup. All of these can be useful, but when mixing them together, you can come up with messy conclusions like GPT 5.6 beats everything, or GPT 5.6 is overrated when it's all too early to tell. The better answer is it depends the workflow that specifically works for your needs. One independent caveat worth mentioning is from Meter. They evaluated GPT 5.6 Sol and flagged that its detected cheating rate was higher than any other public model they had tested on their React agent harness. They also said that the resulting time horizon numbers were not robust for capability measurements. That doesn't mean that GPT 5.6 is bad. It means that agent evaluations are quite complicated. The result can depend heavily on the harness, the setup, and how certain behaviors are counted. So for builders, the takeaway is simple. Don't trust one chart, don't trust one viral post, and don't trust one benchmark screenshot. Run your own workflow tests. The system card also points to the supervision side. OpenAI notes that GPT 5.6 showed a greater tendency than GPT 5.5 to go beyond the user's intent in agentic coding simulations, even though the absolute rate stayed low. That is exactly the kind of detail builders should care about. A more capable agent can be more useful, but if it does more than you asked, that can become a real problem. So if you're using it for coding, tool use, computer use, or anything involving real data, you definitely need boundaries, logs, review points, approval before risky actions, and a clear definition of what the model is allowed to do. So here's the main idea. Don't test GPT 5.6 like a chatbot. Don't ask it one impressive question, get a polished answer, and then change your default mode. That's just the vibe check. A workflow model needs a workflow test. Before you run the 7 tests, freeze the setup. Pick one real task, save the exact inputs, write down what success means, then run it on your current model first, and then run it on GPT 5.6. And if you really want to learn something, repeat the same case multiple times. One run is just a demo, but multiple runs can start to show consistency. Here's the GPT 5.6 builder test. 7 checks before you switch. Test 1, reasoning. Use a task with a known answer. That could be a bug with a known root cause, a data question you can verify, or a planning problem with hard constraints. Don't just ask whether the answer sounds smart, ask it whether it's correct, inspectable, and honest about uncertainty. A confident answer isn't enough. Test 2, coding workflow. Give it a small repo issue with tests. Ask it to inspect, plan, edit, run the test, and report what changed. Then count what actually happened. How many times did you need to intervene? Did the test pass for the right reasons? Did it make any unrelated edits? And did it stop when the task was complete? For coding agents, this matters more than a nice code snippet. You are not just testing if it can write code, you are testing if it can complete a controlled workflow. Test 3, long context. Do not reward the model just because it accepts a huge input. Test whether it actually pays attention. Give it a large document, a large code base slice, policy set, or research packet. Hide the important facts in different places, add 2 similar names, add one old instruction that conflicts with the newer one, then see what happens. Does it find the right information? Does it resolve the conflict properly? Does it cite the right part? Does the giant prompt actually improve the result? If not, the big context window might not be worth it for that task. Test 4, tool recovery. This is important for agents. Give it a workflow that calls 2 or 3 tools and returns a strict format. Then break one thing. Maybe one tool returns an empty result. Maybe one field is malformed. Maybe the intermediate data is messy. Now watch what the model does. Does it recover? Does it keep the output structure? Does it retry intelligently? Does it ask for help when it should? Tools are great, but only if the system stays observable. You need to know what happened when something went wrong. Test 5, image or computer use. Image input is listed for these API models and computer use is listed as a tool capability. So give it a real visual task. That can include a screenshot with a UI problem, a chart with confusing labels, or a controlled browser task inside a test account. Then score what it actually saw, what it missed, and whether it asked before taking any risky action. Do not start this inside a production account. No billing, no publishing, no private customer data, no delete buttons. Start in a safe sandbox area. Test 6, disagreement. Run the same exact task on your current model, Sol, Terra, and Luna. If the 2 answers disagree, don't just pick the one with the better writing. Ask each model what evidence would prove it wrong. Then check that evidence outside the model. This is one of the fastest ways to learn the shape of a model. Where is it more cautious? Where does it push harder? Where does it skip steps? Where does it find something your current model missed? A model does not need to win everything to be useful. It only needs to be better for a job you actually do. Test 7, the decision scorecard. This is where you make the actual call. Track pass rate across multiple runs, then track quality, time, cost, human interventions, and risk. The key phrase is cost per accepted result, not price per token. A model that is slightly better but costs way more and needs more supervision might not be the right upgrade. A cheaper model that passes the workflow consistently might be the better default. That's why builders should not ask, what is the smartest model? They should ask, what's the smallest model and lowest effort level that reliably clears my bar? Before I have my own results, this is the hypothesis I would test. Sol is for the hardest work where failure is expensive. Terra as the everyday default candidate. Luna for classification, extraction, routing, simple tool jobs, and high volume tasks as long as it passes the test. Max when extra reasoning is worth the wait. Ultra when the job can actually split into parallel work streams and the final answer justifies more tokens. But if the task is simple and has to happen one step at a time, using 4 agents might just be overkill. The workflow will decide. So my takeaway is simple. Do not switch because it's new. Switch when it passes your workflow. GPT 5.6 gives builders more ways to trade capability, cost, context, reasoning time, and parallelism. That is useful, but only if you measure the work. So when GPT 5.6 shows up in your account, do not start with your easiest prompt. Pick one real task that you know well. Freeze the inputs, run the 7 tests, keep the receipts. Then choose the cheapest tier and effort level that passes your bar. If you like practical AI breakdowns for builders, subscribe to Jacob Labs. I'm sharing what I'm learning as I build AI in public.